You know, every single day we're pointing, we're clicking, we drag and drop things on our screens without even thinking about it. But what if I told you the whole idea behind these actions didn't come from some big corporate strategy meeting, but from a really fun experiment with a digital mouse trying to find a block of cheese? Yeah, so let's dive into that incredible story and see exactly how it all began.
So let's ask the big question. Where did all this stuff come from? The whole graphical world you navigate every day on your phone, on your computer, where did that spark of an idea even come from? Well, the answer is more than 60 years old, and it all started with a game-changing machine and a surprisingly clever game.
Okay, so our story kicks off way back in the 1950s. We're at MIT's Lincoln Laboratory, and there's this enormous computer project happening called Whirlwind.
Now, you got to understand, computers back then were basically just giant, room-sized calculators. I mean, they were incredibly powerful for crunching numbers, but getting information in or out was this super slow, clunky process. You couldn't just interact with them. But the folks working on Whirlwind, they started to dream. They imagined a more direct, a more personal relationship with these powerful machines.
And that dream, well, it led to the creation of a machine that would totally change the future of computing. And that machine was the legendary TX0. So to really get why the TX0 was such a huge deal, you have to look at what came before it. Most computers were running on these big, hot, and honestly pretty unreliable vacuum tubes. But the TX0, it was built with transistors, and this was a massive leap forward. Transistors were way smaller, faster, cheaper, and a whole lot more reliable. It basically meant a whole new type of computer was suddenly possible.
So there it is, 1956. Two guys who had worked on that Whirlwind project, Kenneth Olson and Wes Clark, they bring the TX0 to life. Now, when I say smaller, you have to take that with a grain of salt. This thing was still a beast. But compared to what came before it, it was sleek, it was powerful, and it was a totally groundbreaking piece of tech.
And this is where it starts to feel like science fiction, especially for the 1950s. The TX0 had two incredible new features. First, a high-resolution screen that worked in real time. You could actually see what the computer was doing right as it happened. And second, something called a light pen. This thing let you literally point at the screen to give the computer commands. This was it. This was the birth of direct, hands-on interaction.
So you've got this incredible new machine, but how do you show people what it can do? How do you really blow their minds? The answer wasn't some boring spreadsheet or a complex math problem. Nope, it was a game. A digital mouse, a virtual maze, and a tasty block of cheese. So in 1959, John E. Ward and Douglas T. Ross created a program they called Mouse, and its whole purpose was to be a jaw-dropping tech demo. It was designed from the ground up to show off just how unique and interactive the TX0 really was in a way that absolutely anyone could understand and appreciate. And this was not just some simple little cartoon. This digital mouse was actually smart. On its first go, it would wander all over the maze, hitting dead ends, figuring out the layout. But then, on its second run, it would remember everything. It would remember its mistakes, calculate the most efficient path, and then just zoom straight to the cheese. But as smart as that little mouse was, that wasn't even the real magic here. The true innovation, the thing that changed everything, was that you, the user, were not just watching. You could pick up that light pen and design the entire maze yourself.
I mean, stop and think about that for a second. This is 1959. You could touch 2 points on a computer screen and draw a wall. You could decide where the prize, the cheese, was going to be. You were, for all intents and purposes, a game designer, creating a level for an AI to solve. The only rule was your maze had to have a solution. Otherwise, the poor digital mouse would just run out of energy and, well, game over. So this simple, playful little demo, it was so much more than a game. It was a foundational moment. It was the first real glimpse into a future where people and computers could work together visually. This was, truly, the dawn of human-computer interaction. And you can draw a straight line from these early days to the world we all live in now. The TX0 in 56 gives us the hardware. The mouse program in 59 proves the concept that interaction is possible. This directly inspired Sketchpad in 63, which was basically the grandfather of all modern graphics programs. And from that point on, the path was clear for the invention of the physical mouse and the entire idea of the graphical user interface, the GUI, that we all use every single day.
So what's the lesson here? What was it about that moment, that specific environment, that allowed for such a massive leap forward?
Well, it's really important to remember this wasn't happening at some big company trying to make a product. Access to the TX0 was super exclusive. It was basically the personal playground for a handful of brilliant grad students and professors inside the walls of MIT.
And that really gets at a huge difference in goals back then. You had commercial giants like IBM, and they were focused on building incredibly reliable and incredibly expensive machines for the government, for the military, for huge corporations. Their number one priority was stability, not crazy experiments. But in the academic world, the goal was completely different. It was about pure exploration, just pushing the technology to its absolute limits to see what was even possible.
And this quote just nails that spirit perfectly. The people who invented our interactive world, they weren't following some 5-year business plan. They were just driven by pure curiosity. They were the pioneers who were willing to charge into the unknown just to see what they would find.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. As we look ahead to the next big breakthrough, the next world-changing idea, where's it going to come from? Is it going to be born from a carefully crafted business plan? Or is it going to come from the playful, pure curiosity of someone just messing around, trying to teach a digital mouse how to find a piece of cheese?